Magical items and spells can add a lot of flavor to any D&D campaign, so I talked to Chris Perkins about some of his favorites.
It has occurred to me recently that there are certain spells that I like from a story point of view because they encourage player creativity. Spells like, they don't have a locked effect, so there are things like prestidigitation, where you can do all kinds of things with the spell, or polymorph, where you can make all kinds of choices about what to turn something into. Those are the spells that I typically find the most interesting, and possibly the most interesting from a story point of view. Like, for instance, you could go into a dungeon and maybe there's a very hungry bear there trying to eat you. It's a much more interesting encounter if somehow you learn that that bear is a polymorphed person. So using spells against the characters in interesting ways like that is also kind of fun. As for magic items, the same thing. Some of the most fun adventures that I've ever read and or run used magic items in odd, off-the-wall ways. There was one adventure back in the early days of Dungeon Magazine. I think it was called Juggernaut. And in the adventure, a tribe of goblins find a figurine of wondrous power. That's the marble elephant. And so the whole premise of the adventure is you have to get this item away from the goblins because they're all running around on this gigantic elephant, stomping things into the ground. That's kind of fun. There was another adventure that had a sentient rope of climbing or something like that that you had to fight. I remember there was an adventure in dungeon called Deadly Treasure where all the traps in the dungeon were basically activated by magic items, like a decanter of endless water that would flood a room, that kind of thing. I love using magic items against the characters and giving them magic items that have dimensionality to them. In Dice Camera Action, Holly's character Strix was being accosted by a broom of animated attack, and she was able to threaten and tame it into submission. So now she has this broom following her around, and she can ride it. Jared's character Diath has a magical short sword that's sentient and has the personality of the HAL 9000. And sort of goading him into backstabbing things. Paulton got a severed hand, a crawling claw essentially, that has a backstory, most of which hasn't been revealed yet, but will probably be revealed to some extent in Tomb of Annihilation. And yes, it's been following him around. I think that creates interesting role-playing opportunities and actually adds a new dimension to the characters. It's not simply something they're carrying around, it has become part of their identity.